And yes, for these permaculture projects, it's a death sword. If you're going to get into this world, you're going to run into structures like the patterns of the permaculture design.
Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Vine, where we talk about permaculture, people and projects. My name's Cormac Harkin. I'm your host, and today we have Matt Monger with us. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much, Cormac. It's a pleasure to be able to, on the other side of the ocean, on separate continents, on a day like today, and still be able to communicate. I love where we find ourselves.
Yeah, great stuff. Do you want to just give us a quick introduction, please?
Yeah, so I am a Central Colorado country boy, really. So I grew up out here, born and raised. So country skills is where it started from. So I'm a systems thinker, always have been. So when I get into school, I am a civil engineer by education, a structural engineer by practice, and a permaculture designer by passion. Right. So in this business, so 2005, I finished schooling as a structural engineer, went straight into the market of Central Colorado, where we're designing things. These people have way too much money up here, is really what it is. And I am in the front lines of owners trying to get through the building municipalities to get things done, stamped, and approved. Like, we live in a land, personally, in the Central Colorado is where I'm at. It's very high, like it's hard to get to the building department. So where I'm at, people model our municipalities for future building departments, which makes everything much, much difficult and much takes longer, more expensive. And I want to live in third world countries. Like, I love this permaculture world and where we're going. When I get to talk to clients that are off grid and they have no entangling alliances with municipalities, it makes everything easier, for sure and for certain. So thanks for having me, Cormac.
Thanks very much for agreeing to on. I guess our second attempt at getting it done. What we got there?
Well, I'm glad that we actually did the second attempt, because a lot's happened this summer.
That's great. So, do you want to just take us back to the start of your permaculture journey and just where you heard of permaculture and how that meshes in with your other work?
Yeah. Where did permaculture come from, and where did we all start? That's where it's a fun question. So civil engineers get nabbed up into permaculture. So I first heard of Jeff Lawton through the Survival Podcast. So Jack Spirko, he's an awesome source for those that don't know him. So he started picking up on permaculture. He coordinated with Jeff Lawton on his first online PDC in 2012, 2013, something like that. So I took a class with Jack Spirko and Matt Powers and myself and a few others. We were one of the first handfuls of the first ones he did. And that got me my PDC. And I've been trying to carve out at least a lane in a sustainable future inside of civil engineering and structural engineering since then. So it's been almost a decade, over a decade.
Right. So how was that course? Was that a course with Jeff online, I take it?
It was actually his first one. Yeah. So like, he went through, like, we were virtual in the classroom, right? So he did all of his lectures with the kids there and the live Q&A, but we weren't actually on site to participate, but we got the full PDC. So we got to ask questions. He was very patient, and it was, I don't even know, it was a course of, I think it was nine weeks, 3 months, something like that. I mean, it was a serious journey for me. It reprogrammed me, for sure. Like, I never thought again after that. Like, it completely put me on a new trajectory of life. And even though it was online, it gave me everything that I needed, I felt like, and it just snowballed. Like, I just stayed in it after that. I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. I went up and saw up at Permies. So not Jeff Lawton. Who's the Permies guy? It's Paul Wheaton, right? So I went up and saw him after that and did some traveling, and I've just had my hands on the pulse of this whole thing ever since. Like, I've been wholeheartedly permaculture since 2013, really. It's just been in Colorado where nobody knows what it is. Like, I'm up against ranchers that's been doing it for 5 generations, and you show up and say, we want to change the way we've been doing things. They don't receive it very well. So when I was in Meeker, Colorado, it was a tiny little town. And then we moved to Newcastle. So now we're a little bit closer to civilization in a way. And yeah, we've been able to get more done, but the mentality's changed. People actually heard of permaculture, like even in like typical news articles or even politicians, and like there's a lot of mainstream people that are throwing the word around now that never used to.
Right. So it's good that you're hearing more of it. Um, so you mentioned there you were reprogrammed after the PDC. You want to tell us more about that and what you did after PDC then? What
Well,
and tell us about that shift in yourself?
yeah. So I mean, it's a relearning, right? So you're reprogramming your mind. I mean, for me, I was born in the Western mindset. It's amazing I made it through higher education without being brainwashed. In all reality, that's what that system does, and it does well. So I mean, it's just I always knew something was wrong. Permaculture just sucked me in its truth. And once I did that, like you harmonize with nature. Like ever since then, it's completely changed my systems thinking, right? Like so I'm an engineer, I'm a systems thinker. I went to school. It's easy to pick up on the spreadsheets and arrays and all the things that go along with engineering, right? So, but permaculture gives you a proper place to do energy audits where you start correctly, you look at everything that goes into something to create it and the depth of it, right? So like there's a whole conversation that we never got in Western world of like where did this piece come from? How long does it last? And then where does it go after it's done in its useful life? So, and pattern recognition was the biggest one. Absolutely. It's changed everything. Once you realize that patterns repeat, and it opens up the doors to everything. And then the other big one that I learned from permaculture that I wasn't really paying attention to is function stacking. If you're gonna put the energy into something, if you're gonna be doing something once, make sure that it at least performs 2 to 3 tasks. Function stacking is where we get return of interest quickly, and we
Yeah, that's a big Jack
it
Spiritual one.
makes
He's
so much
always on about
sense.
that, isn't
Yeah,
it? Three
yeah,
uses
yeah,
for three things.
yeah.
Right. So you've done the PDC. Do you work on your own project at your own place?
Yeah, so up where I'm at 8,000 feet. Well, I guess I'm at 7,000 feet in the Central Rockies. All right. So I'm actually in a microclimate. It's really cool where we're at. So we have peaches this year. We had such a late frost that we lost all of the domestic fruits and berries. And and we probably lost half the natives, which is very, very rare. This was an odd season. So we typically get like 80 to 90 days of frost free growing. This year, our last frost was like 2 weeks late. So we got a full 90, almost 90 days this year, which is rare. Um, and so I've been playing with microclimates. So I have like little peach trees and cherry trees, and I have them in elevated situations, and I have cold dumps. So it's pretty cool. It works. Like I'm regulating my climate with a mini mountain range is what we did. So I have cold dumps. Like you can actually feel the cold running around your face when it's flowing, right? And then everywhere it's elevated, like I'll have squash or tomatoes, they'll live through a frost, and you can any of the branches that hang down to the low pits actually get frostbit and move out. It's pretty cool seeing the pictures and seeing how it works. It's so I've effectively extended my season by at least 2 weeks on either end, I think, for the most. I mean, in certain microclimate locations. We are actually off to horses. We're back into horses. We got a stud, and I got 2 beautiful little Palomini paint fillies that we're working with. So we're training horses and doing that. We got Dorper sheet. I've got ducks. I've got chickens. I've got dogs, big guardian dogs, because we are in the middle of a wildlife sanctuary. So we get a lot of wilderness, like bear and elk and deer activity pressure on everything that we do. So yeah, we're phase 3. I mean, phase 3 on this. We're going to start working on propagating the plants that have been successful and moving it forward. We're in a fragile ecosystem. Like we get less than 15 inches of rain, and then our cold, high altitude makes it difficult. It's awesome. Like we're finally making some pretty good inroads, and I've successfully harvested peaches and plums and apricots, and no nectarines yet, but we get apples and pears and a lot of berries. Berries love it up here. But yes, I like Central Colorado. I'm born and raised out here, and I'd be hard to leave.
So you say a 90-day growing season?
Well, 90, yeah. So like, so
Nin-
my flat, so I've started, yeah.
That's tight.
I've been working on a
Uh,
new time wheel. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I created a new calendar that has the 13 months on it, right? And the 12 months, and it has the climactic data of like my last frost, first frost, last frost, right? So you can actually see how small our little growing window is. Like, so the 3 seasons of growing out here is very important. Like if I'm just growing in the middle of the summer, I'm losing a lot of growing days. So I have a lot of frost days that I can grow in the spring. And I really like to plant in the fall because spring wakes up on its own and you never know what's going to be. So out here where we're at, it's spring's literally plus or minus 3 weeks easy as far as like the amount of snow we have and when things start growing. So in the fall time, I like to make my indicator beds, and I'll put like garlic, and I'll put spinach in there, lettuces in there. They wake up first, right? So I'll put them to bed in the wintertime, and then they wake up when they're supposed to in the springtime, and then we'll move into planting again. But I love my fall planting. So this year I took the entire summer off of planting crops. It was all fall planting last year. We had great grandpa pass away last year, so we've been taking great grandma. So we had to take a lot of time away from the homestead. And then now we're going back into fall planting. So we did our plant divisions, and we'll beef up all of our guilds. We'll throw out some fall seeds, and we're getting ready for winter. And it's a scramble right now for sure. Like it's going to snow for the next 4 or 5 days.
yeah, I used to always joke with Crystal that nobody should live in Colorado. It's just too tough
Yeah,
to grow
it makes
anything.
you hard. It really does. If you're outside in an outdoor enthusiast in Colorado, it will make you tough.
But it really fine tunes your gardening skills and your growing skills and your permaculture skills to get the most out of it.
Yeah, like it was super frustrating at first because I see a lot of people pulling off stuff that I couldn't pull off, right? And it's very challenging. It's going to make me much better in the end. So I've been doing this. So 2012, I did my PDC, right? And when we were in Meeker, it was a full latitude north. So like everybody's designing for this warmer climate. And when I was in Meeker, I mean, it's as a crow flies, it's probably only 40 miles away, but it's a full latitude north, and it's a full zone colder. So when I was in Meeker, I was actually looking for zone 3 hardiness when I planted plants, and half of those died. Like it got cold enough to where half of the zone 3 plants died in Meeker, and I'm supposed to be zone 4, zone 5. So it gets weird when you get into higher altitude. So we're on the other side of the Colorado River, the main basin on the south side. So now all of a sudden my climatic factors, like I'm not very far away where I was, but I'm much warmer. So I can actually do zone 4, and in my microclimates, even maybe like 5B. But I'm still leaning towards the colder, hardier species because we have times where we have 30 below in the winter, and it just kills the branches of the plants. I can't design for a warmer zone.
Yeah. So yeah, that is cold. Um, I'm lucky here. I have a very mild climate, uh,
Yeah.
and a long enough growing season that you sort of be ready. You sort of ready to pack everything up at the end of it.
Yeah.
But at least I have that choice. So, yeah. So your design work. Did you do much design work locally for others,
I
or is
do.
it
I
more?
mean, we're in a place where we're at. So like I live in near Aspen, Colorado. So like the majority of the projects we've done are like high end mansions and commercial projects, and bridges, right? Like I have experience design a lot of structural things, which makes it super cool when we get in this permaculture world because people want to do things in simpler manners and use local materials, but it makes my job easy compared to what we've done with billionaires that are doing things irresponsibly up in the valley. So I'm super stoked about where this goes with this. So we just got done. So River Richardson's he's at Haven Earth. So we just finished a design with him, and he did a hempcrete. So he grows his own hemp, and he has his own batching process to create these beautiful hemp walls. And this hemp wall has its finish on the outside, it's been finish on the inside, and it's nothing but hemp and natural materials. So it's a breathable, antimicrobial, antifungal wall that has insulative properties, right? So he has different back dimensions that we do for the walls and the ceilings. So we just did one for him in Tennessee, and where I guess let's make this useful for the clients that are getting something out as far as building department goes. So I'm working with him. He's off grid, so we don't have to use the building code, right? So now I get to ask him like questions. Okay, what are the materials that you want to build this out of? What kind of local materials can we use? And what kind of performance do you want out of this thing? Are you expecting like heavy winds or like hurricanes? So like in the end, I was like, I can design this building to be simple as it comes, international residential code compliance, which is very skinned down light, right? Or I can kick it up a notch and put a lateral system in here where it can take a major windstorm or a small tornado, right? So that's kind of where we ended up. We gave it a decent lateral system. We made sure it can handle all the gravity that it would be. And he's got this awesome little hempcrete house that he should be finishing up right now. That's going to be beautiful. I have another client that's going to be doing papercrete. He's been collecting paper for years. He's got 2 semi-truck loads full of paper, and we're going to mill that down and make a concrete slurry out of that. And we're actually going to make papercrete walls, right? So with that lime in there, it's pretty, we can add antifungal, bacterial injections to that too. So where it's pretty clean. And I'm actually giving it a beefed up structural system too. So we're using CMU, concrete masonry units, with the papercrete walls. So he wanted something that was it'll take a light earthquake. It'll take a heavy windstorm. And so we beefed up the lateral design on it too. So he's going to be doing that. So those are the kind of clients I like, right? Those are off grid. And they don't have to follow the IRC or IBC. So when I say IRC, it's International Residential Code. And then we have the International Building Code, which is the IBC. So if you are not going to a local municipality, a lot of times you can get these things through without being what we call code compliant. But unfortunately, most of us live in places where we have governing municipalities, and we have to do what they say, and they have the ultimate authority. So to give a quick rundown of what I just went through with the project that I posted on Telegram for you, I found a client. She owns Beaver Lake Lodge in Marble, Colorado. So she has many properties lots together. She has housing. So she has cabins, like 2 and 3 bedroom, single bedroom cabins, and then she has a lodge. So she's expanding the lodge. She wanted to do this building residential. So she found a pre-engineered steel building. So everybody calls them barn dominiums now, right? They go buy a steel building and they turn it into a residence, and they call it a barn dominium. Okay. So, but when I do that, so that's an agricultural zone building, and it's not designed to the same parameters because of the importance factor of the building. So if you're sleeping in a building, if you have permanent habitation in a building, it's called a residence. And that means that it has to have a higher design importance factor than an agricultural hay barn, because its risk to human life is low. And then it goes to the IBC, International Building Code, to where the risk of life is high and the loadings change. So just a short rundown, like for most people that live in municipalities, you can build some kind of small shed structure anywhere from 200 to 600 square feet without a code. If you go over, or building plans, if you go over that, you get into you have to submit a plan checklist, and you're submitting to your local municipality. So if you do have to build anything, the first step is to go to your local municipality, ask them for their submittal package, tell them what you're building, and they're going to give you either something that's agricultural, small building, here's your limits, here's what you can do. They're going to say this is residential, this is what it has to comply on, or you get kicked into the commercial world, and this is what you have to comply with. So this building that we just did, we used shipping containers. She bought a 40-foot high cube freight farm. And this is a plug and play aquaponics system to feed the local charter school. So she has partnered with the people in Marble. It's a tiny town, 8,000 feet, just completely gets snowed in the wintertime. But they have a school there, a local charter school, and she wants to help feed them healthy food. So we bought another shipping container, we plugged them together, and we made 2 of them side by side. And then we plugged them into this big steel building that has a loft. So now she ends up with a lot of square footage. But by doing this, it kicked us into the International Building Code, the IBC. So this project had to be full commercial. when I started this thing, she was trying to make it, she wanted housing for her people, and it was residential. They made us tear it apart. We lost our climate battery. We got to put it back together. And then they forced the commercial. So in my design phase of this thing, I had to design this building 3 different times because of the municipality's inputs and them changing their mind and allowing us to do this. It was amazing we even got the project put together. There's a lot of municipalities that would not have allowed shipping containers on a steel building in a mixed zoning usage for this whole thing. So in the short, I just went through the third party examiner for this project and how these decisions are being made as we move into the future. So for those of you that are in this building world, there are some opportunities to diversify, I think, our permaculture designs and actually make money and have maybe an impact on this changing world. So that was a lot, Cormac. You comment and see how we want to, I mean, because I really want to make this conversation on people, on the changing in the future and how we can be more useful. Well, so the changes are, so one of the things, so this year alone, I mean, my structural engineering kind of pays the bills, but I'm trying to diversify my permaculture services to as wide as they can be for as much money as I can gain from people and plant permaculture seeds. So where I'm at this year, I did 2 land use changes. So we have old time families that have what we call cow camps up in these mountains. So they are leases, 100-year leases on national forest where they can build little cabins and have what they call cow camps. So they do grazing leases with sheep or cattle. They get a cabin. And the national forest is requiring plans for these things. So I actually had to coordinate with Routt County for this rancher, and I had to make a proximity map. So I had to show the building official how to find this place in the middle of the woods. And then I had to make a scaled site map. So it's similar to what our permaculture maps are. It gives you good practice on finding surveys and satellite images and scaling them and making sure that all the property boundaries line up. And they want to see the size of the buildings. They want to see where the propane, they want to see what kind of heat, they want to see what kind of plumbing, they want to see the size of these buildings, and they wanted pictures. So I contracted with this owner to create 2 maps and a final report with the pictures describing this whole thing. I never had to show up to the site, and I was able to get it through the planned zoning use for this place. So that I charged the guy $1,500 to do this, and now he's in my corner of doing new maps. And when they do want to do, I mean, paddock, this guy raises sheep. Okay, he's in meat sheep and wool sheep, so he has a lot of land. This guy's got 68,000 acres, right? So I'm trying to get in with him. Like, look, I can make you useful maps. We can help you do paddock shifting. We can do grazing paddocks, like different things, different times, different seasons. And then like even this property. So he does wintertime activities with snowmobiling, and he does hunting in the fall. And then the summer he grazes, right? So he's got 3 different things he's trying to annually function stack to make money on this property. And he had to have these maps. And by far, he was pleased with my services because nobody else could really do what he wanted to do. All he could else was talking to architects, and they were very expensive. So there's going to be lots of things as permaculture designers that we can do to help clients to get through municipalities and still plant the seed of growing a more sustainable future for the right reasons.
Yeah. It takes a lot of patience to get through that. Charity Ollie from Earth Repairs recently, he as well got his project through some type of planning. It was the first in the UK as well. So
Yeah.
there does seem to be things opening up all over the place, and it's getting the bureaucrats they sort of relearn as well what's acceptable.
So I mean that's exactly where I'm at.
We have a crazy situation here. I was chatting to a guy who built a house, and you can't have it the same. So he was out in the country, a house. He couldn't have the house the same as next door. It had to be some difference because he liked difference. But then it couldn't be too far different that it looked out of place, and it's all subjective. and
Yeah.
it's the planning rules are. It's just the way he described it was you don't need planning permission to build a house, but in order to build a house, you have to meet all these regulations. That's
Yes.
daft, and I've heard of
It's
people
super
too build,
challenging.
yeah, build eco houses, and then what they have to do then is they have to go through the whole process of proving how their house meets a certain R value, and then they have to.
Yep.
The onus is on them. Then they spend all this money hiring experts in to um, put all this stuff in place and fight and pay. And then it costs a fortune.
It's
It's sort of pioneering work at this stage, I think.
It is. It is. So, I mean, yes, like there's the red flag. Like if anybody is being forced into municipalities, you're going to have to pay professional designers, and the project is going to be take way more, and it's going to be way more expensive, and it's just ridiculous. And then to the other ones that are out there listening, like if you can build something without a code, like I would recommend you still use a designer. Like there hasn't been a single client that I've ever actually contracted with that didn't agree in the end that I saved them a lot of money and hardship and time by just succeeding a project correctly, right? Like just because you don't have to do the building department doesn't mean that you don't get the advantages of having a designer. Because like having a set of plans that you can communicate to a contractor, to an owner, and draw on and like make sure you're not making mistakes and thinking about everything in the proper succession as far as like, okay, I'm digging a hole. What other new utilities do I need in here before I fill this hole? Because that is your last chance to fill that hole, to put anything in there that's going to help you. And a lot of times, like these climate batteries, like I said, this one is awesome because the climate battery is a super bonus for this thing that we would have never considered doing, except for like the client's like has a little bit of surplus in her budget and she wants to make this thing sustainable every chance she can get. And we're going to put temperature probes in this thing. We're going to monitor it. And I can't wait to see what it's going to do to the stability of this big steel building by injecting hot attic air into it just on a simple fan, right? And a simple heat recovery unit, an HRV, right? Like the system that we're putting in this thing is going to be relatively simple. So I'm betting she's going to get an ROI pretty quickly. And it's a 30 by 40 building, right? Like it's going to make a huge difference. So it's a two-edged sword. It absolutely is. But if you're designing and you have to go through the building departments, you're going to have professional designers. There's no way around it anymore. And so on that project we're doing right now, so we had to do 3 special inspections because it was a commercial building. Okay. And the building official is being very nice by letting us bridge the gap between the 2012 code and the 2021 code. So as soon as we turn the page in January, all these things are going to get to third parties. So now the plan review is being reviewed by a third party. That's why all these things are coming up. And local municipalities never read and owned the code. So now they source it. They're too small. It's too big. So they source it out to a third party plan reviewer. So now everything is being held to the code by a very high scrutiny. And then now it goes to a third party inspector to where the building inspector no longer carries the liability. The third party does. And the third party is taking all this very seriously. So in this building, we have 3 special inspections. In 2024, next year, I bet you we'd have at least 6, if not 8. And there's actually verbiage in the 2021 building code that the shipping containers we used have to have the materials tested. So they actually want to cut out a piece of the steel, physically test it for its material properties, and submit it to the engineer of record. So we now have a third party that has to do all sorts of observation and write daily reports of every observation. And then they have to write a concluding report of all the observations and code compliance, plan compliance, and submit it back to the building official and the engineer of record. So everything just got much more expensive and take longer and everything. Like this has been happening since 2005, since I've been doing it. And now it's like the third party gets involved. We're looking for massive disruptions. But if there's a permaculture company out there that's already doing material testing, that's testing Wi-Fi radiations in home, they're testing black mold, they're testing these things, right? Like you could expand your business scope of work to include all these things that are going to be coming from local municipalities. And I think you could find a place to plant some seeds of sustainability, make a bunch of money in their system, but like channel that money to a better future. Because if we're going to be testing these buildings and you could prove that there's mold in there and there's healthier ways to do this, it's going to be a massive wake-up call for the populace. It really is.
That sounds like an awful lot of hassle.
Yeah, but somebody's got to have to do it. And yes, for these permaculture projects, it's a death sword. Like this lady that I just contracted to her, she's so thankful and she's so stressed out and she just can't believe how much money this cost me. Because when we first did it residential, I was stacking those CMU containers on cinder blocks, CMU, right? And it was relatively simple, but I had to double the loading. Like a residential loading is 40 pounds per square foot. As soon as I went to commercial, it has to be 100 pounds per square foot. So that's a 250% loading on these things. And it went to concrete piers, it went to serious stuff. And as soon as it went to commercial, everything kicked in the gate. Like it's a job killer for most of these projects. It absolutely is. And like, I'm stuck in the middle of this world of like trying to be practical and meeting these codes. And I understand like what decisions lead you into being code compliance and what don't. So it's made a big difference on a lot of projects, but most people have no idea what they're up against when 2021 code compliance hits. I can promise you that.
And that's across the whole, all the states?
Well, it's not just the states, it's building municipalities. So this one was Marble. They get to choose their own code compliance. So they said, okay, we picked 2003 for this. We're using shipping containers. So I actually had to have a negotiations with a third-party plans reviewer. So they're letting me cherry pick the 2021 codes for this project, but still use 2023 or 2003 loading. But most municipalities are telling you what code they comply. They're adopting it. So
And when
as they pick them up, they all pick them up. And the global people are doing it. There's international building codes just the same. You over there in Europe, you're up against it just as badly because there's a lot of places that have governing municipalities in Europe that are, if not bad, if not worse than what we have.
Yeah, a lot of strange stuff happens here.
Yeah, like it just depends on where you're at. So it's towns, cities, counties, whatever your governing municipality is. And we've actually made a lot of headway with some of these municipalities too. Like in my country code, so Garfield County is a lot different. I actually sat down with that man and be like, look, this is agriculture. This is what these people are doing. And he was able to make a personal exemption. He was the plans examiner. I told him exactly what we're doing. And I tell you what, when you show up to this building department and you have good maps, like I'm taking really good maps, right? Like one of my projects I'm working on right now, I took Ben Mazimir's LiDAR maps, which are top shelf, beautiful maps from Pearl River Design, right? And I overlaid my site map on it and I got them through the building department with no survey. Usually they're requiring a survey. So if I can make pretty enough maps that the building official's like, oh, this is beautiful. I can see exactly where it was. He signed off on this project and it was not a licensed survey map. He was so impressed with that map. He was like, cool. So I have some municipalities that are trying to make it easier on clients. And this is an agricultural place. So he actually had the power to stamp it and make it easier for this client. And then this other one I'm working on for in Marble, they had the power to say, no, this is commercial and this is the way you're going to do it. And we had to do it that way. So it is totally in the hands of the local plans examiner, whoever the actual examiner is. They have authority to require or allow almost whatever they want.
So I'm a bit of permaculture designer. How do I start to learn about this, the structural side of things? Or for me, I would probably say at this stage, I'm better to hire a partner who knows what they're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
But even
like, so if you're going to get into this world, you're going to run into structures like the patterns of the permaculture design, right? Like we start with water, then we start with access, and then we move straight into structures, right? Like it's right there top, right? Like, so if we understand where all the water goes, if we understand where our roads want to be high and dry, then we know where our structures want to go. Like it does play into permaculture, absolutely. And then anybody that's in wanting to explore structures wherever they're at, they need to look at what the local people, the indigenous knowledge has been building throughout time, right? Like we've stepped away from, we're building these dangerous homes that are just sealed Ziploc bags. If their mechanical systems fail, you will die in that house if you don't know to open that window. Like these things, the continuous insulation requirements for 2021 require this plywood to go over the framing that has insulation standoff. So it's a continuous insulation. And then they tape all the seams, right? So they're doing HERS testing. So they're putting in a fan in this thing and they're testing the pressure losses and how much they don't physically pass. These things are completely airtight. And if you don't have fresh makeup air for your air exchanges, like these new houses are actually deadly without their mechanical systems. That's one of the things people don't understand what we're doing with these vapor barriers and how we're creating this closed Ziploc bag. Like they literally go in with closed cell polystyrene. So they're spraying insulation, right? It's a vapor barrier. You spray it on the inside. Nothing gets out of that wall. Nothing leaves that house. And you stop all your moisture. So you have to have a humidifier and a heat recover ventilator and fresh makeup air to make that habitation non-toxic, period. So, and if that fails, you guys need to know you need to open your windows to allow for fresh air because you live in an airtight house, right? So they're completely different performance windows as far as what we are building. That hemp house that I just talked about, River Richardson built, there's no vapor barrier in that. That thing breathes on its own and there's no risk of anything being into it. So I like some of the older houses much more than you do. But if you're forced into municipalities and current codes, then you need to know what you're going to be required to build and why, and then the systems that are required to keep that thing healthy and habitable. So if you're like, so structures, like we have to make these decisions. But I love people that are off grid because like, okay, what's your local materials? What do we have for gravel? What can we build the base of this out of? What can we use for aggregate, concrete? Like we can make our own walls just out of sand and lime. That's not even really concrete, but they are a hard wall. We can use logs. We can use paper. We can use hemp. We can grow whatever we want as far as the materials. And then the type of structure depends on what kind of airflow and habitat you live in. And then from there, yeah, find somebody local that can do things the right way. If you want to build something big, then yes, you need a structural engineer that's going to be like, if you want it bomb proof, burn proof, hurricane proof, earthquake proof, right? Those are the things that you really should contract a structural engineer to look at, because just that little simple one, River Richardson, like they can sleep at night knowing that they have a legitimate lateral system. Like if they have a big windstorm, like this thing's going to exceed IRC code because we actually had somebody tell us how to build walls and tie it down to the foundation where it can't blow away. It was simple. Like that project, we didn't add much to the project, but it has a serious lateral system to where it can take a serious hit. And it wouldn't have had that with IRC. IRC would have been easier. It would have been weaker structure. So I know I'm rambling and going all over.
Sorry. Have you seen the Geo ship I seen there on Kirsten Dirksen at the weekend? It's made out of...
So
what do you think of
there's a lot of cool 3D printed stuff, right? And like where they're printing with clay, they're printing with concrete. And then the geo, like the shapes, they make modulars. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like I haven't researched a lot of these things. I just see them come across my screen for the most part. And there is a big future for some of these things. Absolutely. And if we start placing these structures like passive solary and using proper materials and glazing, like we can build smart structures. We can build comfortable places that are oriented correctly, built out of this proper materials that are require very little heat input and output. So I just finished Rob Avis's master or passive solar master greenhouse class, and he wrote the book almost on these geothermal climate batteries, right? He's taking that hot air and he's depositing it into the ground. He did a lot of testing. That class was amazing. So 4-season greenhouses in Canada are not hard to do with zero energy inputs. Like we've got it down. Like we can do this stuff. So that's what's cool about the permaculture, where permaculture meets structural engineering, because now we have all the answers. Like I can make almost anything work structural engineering code compliant. Now let's make them scale down residential in the sustainable mindset, and we can build cool villages. We can build cool homes. We can totally solve the world's problems. Like I'm all about it. Like we just need the right people and the right financial backers behind us to make the right decisions to propel it in the right direction. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I I tend to hold myself back as bureaucrats. They drive me in. I don't like the whole. This thing works, but we're not going to embrace it because somebody from high up hasn't told me to. But it does take pioneers, does take people pushing these stuff. I think Rob's stuff's great. I watch Arcopia as well, has a greenhouse. He's
I
up
don't
in
know if I've seen
Canada.
him.
He
Yeah,
he
I
has
mean,
bananas
there's
grown in
tons.
Canada.
Yeah, we have a guy in like an old timer in Nebraska, same thing, right? Like I'm going to get there. I haven't built like a greenhouse yet. Like I've been concentrating on the microclimates without buildings. Like I'm trying to find things that'll grow and species that'll grow in my harsh climate as is, so I can send it wild. And then I'm going to come back and build an aquaponics greenhouse. Yes, I have plans I hope in the future to grow out freshwater shrimp is really what I want to do. We're on a creek. I can input fresh, clean water and put it in my greenhouse and exit it. I want to grow freshwater shrimp eventually.
Yeah, because I have to do a structural project. I'm in the middle of it. Basically, there was a hole in my garage roof. It was a flat roof. A hole got in. I didn't fix it in time, and the roof needs replaced. So I'm using this as an opportunity now to change the roof, and maybe put in some of these passive solar systems, just as a
Yes,
test bed. So
absolutely.
the garage is like 6 meters by 2 meters. So for
Okay.
me, it's an opportunity. I'm going to try a few things out, especially compost and hot water. So if I put a compost system
Yep.
out the back and run a pipe through it, can I heat? Because the sun, it's in a weird place basically because I've got the house to the east of the garage and then I've got another house to the west. So we're sort of plugged in,
Yep.
and so as soon as the sun goes around a certain point, we lose it in the winter.
So
So
I
it's
can help you
like,
calculate that too. The one we just did, so I've done a lot of work with angles of the suns and these calendars that I'm making to communicate these exact ideas. So I have it down to where I can tell you exactly how many hours and how many days an individual piece will be in the sun, the experienced sun, right? So we can actually calculate heat gains and heat losses a little bit more measurably. So if you actually do get that far and you want to look at that little bitty space, we can. So when you're doing these things, one of the things you need to do, you need to break up your thermal breaks, right? So if I'm trying to capture all this heat, I need to make sure that I don't have a thermal wick pulling the heat out of my system somewhere. So I need some kind of continuous insulation to make sure I'm not just heating the outdoors somewhere, somehow, right? And yes, compost heats very well. And if you can actually get to where you have nitrogen inputs, you can really kick up the heat when you need to, right? So when you add your nitrogen to your compost, that really kickstarts that thermophilic reaction, right? So what a lot
yeah,
of people do, they'll go out there and pee on it, right? It's a lot like they need a hot shower, they'll go out there and pee on it because it puts a lot of nitrogen in there and they'll stir it and it'll give them the heat they need to get a hotter shower, right? So that's what
yeah,
Paul Wheaton was working with when I was up there with helping him too, because that's what he does for one of his outdoor showers, right? Like everybody will go out there and pee on this pile together and they'll stir it up so they can get some hot water to go take their showers. So, but if you can contain that heat, then you'll capture more of it in a way too. And it's just keeping your pile alive where you can pull it out and still put it back in there and have your piping not get all tangled up. Like if I was actually going to do it, I would probably make like a cage, like a wire cage where I can flop it down, get it out, put it back, and it's still there, and everything's rigid enough to where I don't have to. I can beat on it with a shovel, and it'll fall off, and I can redo my pile. Because the problem with
yeah,
that is it's hard to get. It's hard to get the biomass out without tearing up my piping.
yeah. So I was at a gathering there in the summer, and there was a girl there who's heating her water, and she does it in a like 2 meters by 2 meters wood chip pile. But she has an ABC tote the outside of it, and she puts cattle panel, and then the pipe
Yeah,
goes around the ABC, so she can it filters enough through, and she's getting is it like 2 minutes of water every so many minutes. So she's doing well. So I'm going to replicate that. She seems to be having very good success
yeah.
with it. So I'm going to give that a
No,
go.
that
And it
seems
does,
smart and kind of what I was talking about, right?
yeah,
Put the piping in a hard cage to where you can actually manhandle it a little bit. and clean it up.
Well, she's the whole thing set up where that just sits in the middle, and then her compost just goes through, and then she just scrapes the bottom out. So it's up on breeze blocks, I think they call them, and then she just
as long
clears
as she
it
has
out.
it where it sieves through, yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so it is. She puts cattle panel. I think it's 6 by 6 inches, so it gets through, and then she only puts fine wood chip in through it, so that nothing's sticking.
That would help too. And then the other thing I would do to modify that system is air. So a lot like the Johnson and Sue and like Jack Spearco's new thing, right? So they've actually built their compost pile where they can inject air underneath them. Okay, so now they know I'm gonna have to turn them to him. So he can, if you had that system and you had an air input, you can add your liquid nitrogen to heat it up. You can add air to it, and now all of a sudden that thing's going to be turbocharged for heat.
Yeah, because my idea there was I have old insulation pipe and a trampoline at the thing that the kids have a bouncy castle, so it's just a fan that keeps the bouncy castle inflated. So I was just going to attach the two and put the air in through it.
Perfect. That's perfect. So keep your air low. So when you inject your air, you want it to go through all the particles, right? So normally we would have to turn a pile, add your nitrogen and turn a pile to get oxygen into it. But now if they put these perforated pipes underneath their pile, they just inject air and now it just goes through it and they don't even have to turn it.
So that's I'll definitely be in touch then once I start putting a plan together. It's a single brick garage at the minute. So I have to peel the roof.
Do that, and it'd be nice, yeah, because then you could get serious hot water. You could play with it like this much nitrogen, this much air gives me this temperature.
Yeah, so single brick garage. So I have to get the roof fixed first, and then I'm going to put on like a freestanding shower, compost toilet, and then just have it as a wee sort of experimental place where I can go put my office out there, and just try these things out before I convince the wife to do it into the house.
That's cool. So are you going to put a flat roof back on it is your next question, right? Like what kind of roof do you want to put on this thing? Yeah.
I want to put a sleep
loft.
Merely because I want to have extra storage above.
Yeah.
So trying to maximize the use of space. So it's sort of like a tiny home mezzanine.
Yeah.
So, but it
you
wouldn't
can
be
always
a
add
bed.
another floor. I mean,
well,
that's what we did with a steel building, right? I put it on a 2.5 foot stem wall, so it was tall enough to have an attic. Right. So same kind of thing.
I
can take this opportunity. Have a truss.
I can without planning.
Storage truss for your new state. Like you just you buy the trusses. It'll have the bottom cord for the storage load. It'll have the shape of your roof, so you can actually do a shape for passive solar. You can do the shed roof light in, and it's a whole truss you just stack right on top of your walls and redo, and you end up with a second floor and it lights it.
Yeah, there's no structural stability in the brick, single brick.
Oh,
so what I have to do
there's no footer under it.
I know a couple of neighbors got it, and they had to dig founds and put supporting pillars in, and effectively build a roof, sort of inside the brick. So I need to watch cost too, because I don't have that much. It's cost is a big thing, so I can nearly be knocking it down and rebuilding it.
Is what I'm saying. Like I can look at your snow load. I can look at how much an attic weighted. I can look at how much lime load is on that wall, on that roof, and I can help you make some very practical decisions on that system, right? So that's what a structural engineer does. It tracks all those loads. It looks at the lateral, so the wind side by side, and the gravity straight down, or wind straight up, like if you live in a place that has a lot of hurricanes and tensions. But we do stuff like that all the time. And there's definitely options of beefing that up and making that work. It's tiny space. So would you have to submit to a building municipality is the first real question.
Well, if I stay within the height limits of the pitched roof, I don't. But if I change the use, technically I do. But since the mezzanines won't be used for sleeping, they'll be used for storage, I don't need to contact them.
Yep. There it is. There's your land use code change, right? So all those decisions help you stay out of it. We can make it much simpler. Absolutely.
But then that's the way it is. Matt, that's what's up next now for you? What does the future hold?
Well, today is election day, which is amazing. I'm even having this conversation on election day. So I will be dropping off my ballots and I will be heading to Craig. We're going to be up there for a land use change. It's exactly the next thing. It's a hunting cap. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cabins, sleeping cabins, one main like kitchen cabin, right? A couple outbuildings. So I got to go up there. I got to measure all that stuff and I got to put it on the plans so that they can submit it to the local county to do what they have. And so then on the backside of this, like the freight farm hopefully is going to be huge. Like if we can get a commercial building through that actually has a successful climate battery and feed these kids healthy food, like we've got a little food forest started. We're going to do our trails and do more. We can't do more, much up there, but that aquaponics thing is just amazing. So that's a big one. Those are the kind of projects that I want. And then on the next tip is like land development, I guess. I work with a lot of high dollar architects and I just have one. So any of your listeners that you guys want to collaborate, this is really where this is going. Cause I've been pushing publish on drawings for a long, long time. And this architect, he understands that permaculture designers want to be ahead of civil engineers. But he's an architect. He doesn't want a permaculture designer to be head of the architect. He thinks he's in the beginning. So he's proposed with me a challenge. So he just bought 2 16-acre lots, $1 million a piece. So 32 acres. He's $2 million into this thing already, bare lots. And he wants to be the first architect. So $1 million views, Mount Sopris. So like the houses are going to go where they have to go for these views, which isn't fair for permaculture. But he still wants to pay me to make at least 1 or 2 permaculture pages, 24 by 36, that fit into the construction document. So when you go to a construction set of documents, it's going to have the architectural plans. So it'll have all the floor plans, all the elevations, and then it'll have the civil engineering plans that has the driveways, the cuts, the drainages, those kind of things, right? Topo map. And then you'll have structural engineering drawings. And that's typically what all we have. But we want to put in at least 1 or 2 permaculture pages that it's like a master plan. And then the other one's going to be more of like the sector analysis. So what I want it to be is useful information for these people. So I have this new calendar that I put on there that shows frost-free growing days. It's a circular calendar. It has all the moons on there. So we can start timing into nature easier, unlock the Georgian calendar to our natural calendars, the attempt. But I can put dates on there for say, okay, this is when you take hardwood cuttings. This is when you do your fall planting. This is when our expected last frost is. So you have to start your transplants by then, right? Like I'm trying to make it useful. So it'll have sector analysis, it'll have timing, it'll have the soil analysis of the page. I'm going to have to at least get some kind of animals in there. So he's interested in cows, sheep, maybe goats. So I want to put in there their gestation periods and like calving times. And I want to try to make this page, these 2 pages, as useful as we possibly can to ignorant permaculture people. And it's quite the challenge. Like I didn't realize that was what I was going to be asked for. And my brain's really been scratching my head on how can I build 2 24 by 36 inch plots to insert into a building package and make it useful to whoever looks at those pages. It's a unique request. But that's where I find myself. And if we can actually get permaculture in here to a land developer to make more money, like there's going to be a place for that level of permaculture design too. Like this isn't necessarily going to be sustainable because he paid $2 million for these a piece. And his house is going to be where he wants it to be. It's not necessarily what I want or where I want. But it still doesn't mean that permaculture can't find a place to help the whole development run smoother, easier, and more efficiently.
Yeah, Victor Forsky was on here, the Gathering of Tribes episode, and he talked about a similar thing about basically bringing permaculturists in earlier on the planning stages. So basically, instead of doing all the gardens at the end, you bring them in at the start. They work alongside
and that's what
architects.
He wants to do too. Yes.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Victor Forsky. He was on this. He was on the show. He was talking about it.
Cool.
Yeah, it was the Gathering of Tribes episthead.
Cool.
And that's what they're trying to work on here in Europe, is to get them processes changed to bring permaculturists on earlier. I think that's where really I think the opportunity is for permaculture professionals. Then, if they get these things aligned, if we get aligned with these other professions,
yes.
But then where are we in terms of qualifications? Like a 2-week PDC is not the same as a 3-year structural engineering degree plus work experience.
Well, yeah,
plus,
and that's what's been nice about me, right? I just get trumped straight in because of my professional structural engineering career, right? Like, and that's
yeah,
the only reason I'm able to make a lot of these decisions, but it makes me an efficient bridge builder in this scenario because, yeah, I'm on the front lines of it in a way. I'm in a very high end valley, though, like where we're at, that's just stupid how much money this stuff costs. And by the time these
yeah,
people are in it for this much money in this house, they don't have the budget for permaculture for the most part. Like, they're either small town families that are doing it on their own and they have no budget, or they have an extremely large budget and they want nothing to do with sustainability. Like,
yeah.
unfortunately, it's kind of
Definitely
where
a lot
I'm
of
at.
work to
But
be done.
people are changing though. Like, the building department wants to see these things change. Like, I've had some big meetings with them, and like, it's just slow moving. And I want to deal with people that are making the right decisions for the right reasons without their hands being forced by municipalities. Really, I don't think it's fair. But that's where I find
Yeah,
myself.
and to me, it's very frustrating that what governments tend to do is just say, right, we'll just tax. No, we need to save the environment. Let's have a carbon tax instead of going, no, right, let's look at a planning system and how we build stuff, and that's actually how we look. And actually have some solutions to bring these things to people's attention when they're building. It's like, no, we'll just tax them. That's, well, that's not going to save the planet.
Yeah, it's
No,
got to change.
Actual real solutions need to be implemented, not sound bites. And taxing as a solution to anything drives me mad because that just lets rich people get away with it. And actually, you adversely affect people with no money. And it's like, that's not a real political solution, but it seems to work in their eyes. Relook at the
Nah, it doesn't
systems
work
and
anymore.
put that proper sustainability requirements into these things.
And that's why permaculture needs to be out front. Like, nobody does a correct energy audit of, like, okay, what did it take to create this element? How long is its life? And what does it take to get rid of it? I mean, permaculture is the only one that talked about that in all of my Western education, which is really, really sad.
Matt, it's been great. We're nearly at an hour.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
fun.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, get in touch with the show, and we'll pass your details on to Matt. So it's
right
Cormac.
now it's just personal contact information, but I am game to get on board with any team that wants to, like, show what we can do, because I've been doing it in the professional world for too long, and I'm ready for permaculture to, like, find its place and just beat the competition, which I know it can and will do.
There we go. Where's my email now? Yeah, so if you just send me an email with Matt Monger on the subject line, I can pass your information on, and Matt will get back to you.
Absolutely.
And as well, if you're looking for permaculture courses, what do you do next? We have a number of resources on our website and our blog. So our website, findpermaculture.com, where we have Ecoversity is doing a PDC at the minute. There's a business design course. Maybe Matt will get a structural engineering course up there for permaculturists.
I could probably give a scaled down version and use, like, put some tables and basic things that could help out a lot. Yes. Because I mean, when I do my layouts now, like, a lot of times people are asking me, okay, I'm going to use dimensional lumber. So when River Richardson, what he did, he's like, okay, this is what I can get, 16-foot piece of lumber, right? I designed the structural for whatever you find, right? Like, a lot of people, they'll go out and find, like, say, a truss habit. Like, I bought a truss package. Here's my trusses, build my walls, design my foundation, right? Like, no matter what building Lego blocks you choose to find, we can put it together to build something out of it. There's a lot of projects I've done like that. Like, they'll reclaim a steel building, or they'll buy a piece of property that has a whole bunch of wood. They'll mill their own wood, right? They'll buy a bandsaw and they'll mill their own wood. They'll build that out of logs. They're on a rock quarry. They can build a lot of stuff out of rocks. Like, we can build anything out of anything at this point.
That's great, Matt. Thank you very much. And guys, that's been Matt Monger on the Permaculture Vine podcast, and we'll catch you all next week. Cheers.
Cheers.